I stared at my mother as her fingers dug into my arm, pulling me away from the front row of my own sister's wedding. Her voice was low but sharp, meant only for me. "You don't belong up front. Those seats are for immediate family." I felt my breath catch. "I am immediate family." She smiled, but there was nothing warm in it. "Not today." Then I heard it, a throat clearing behind us. We both turned. The family lawyer stood there, briefcase in hand, his expression unreadable. He looked directly at my mother. "Mrs. Harper, we need to discuss your mother's will." "It can't wait. My name is Danielle Harper, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a high school English teacher in our hometown, the same place I grew up, the same streets I walked as a kid who always felt just slightly invisible. I've always been the steady one. Not flashy, not dramatic, not the one who got applause when she walked into a room. That was my younger sister, Chloe. She was the one they always praised, the one with the spotlight following her everywhere she went. Growing up, Chloe got the best birthday parties with rented bounce houses and catered food. She got the newest clothes from the mall, tags still on, while I wore hand-me-downs from cousins. She got the loudest cheers at family dinners when she talked about her latest hobby or boyfriend or trip. I got responsibility. I got babysitting duty every Friday night. I got helping Dad sort through bills at the kitchen table when Mom was too tired. I got picking Mom up from work when her car broke down again. I wasn't rich. I wasn't glamorous. I didn't marry into money or live in a big house with a manicured lawn. I rented a small one-bedroom apartment on the second floor of an old building, and I drove a used Honda Civic with a dent in the back bumper. But I had something they didn't expect: patience. And documentation. For the last 3 years, I had quietly handled my grandmother Aliner's medical paperwork, her appointments, and her finances. No one else wanted the responsibility. It was boring. It was time-consuming. It meant sitting in waiting rooms and filling out forms and keeping track of prescriptions. "You're so good with boring stuff," Chloe used to laugh, waving her hand like it was a compliment. I never corrected her. When Grandma passed 6 months before the wedding, I was the one holding her hand in that sterile hospital room. I was the one who made sure she wasn't alone. Chloe posted a crying selfie on Instagram with a long caption about how much she'd miss her. Mom told everyone at the funeral how devastated she was, how much she loved her mother, but she hadn't visited in weeks. I didn't fight for attention. I didn't argue over praise or recognition. I just showed up. But at my sister's wedding, when my own mother told me I didn't belong in the front row, something shifted inside me, because I knew something they didn't. And I wasn't standing in that church by accident. If you've ever been the responsible one while someone else got the applause, hit that subscribe button right now. Do you know what it feels like to be overlooked but still show up, week after week, year after year? Tell me in the comments. Click hype if you've ever been underestimated by the people who should know you best. Let's go. The wedding was at a modest but elegant venue just outside town, a restored barn with string lights and white roses everywhere. I arrived early, dressed simply but beautifully in a navy dress I'd bought on sale. I wanted to support Chloe. I wanted to be happy for her. But when I walked up to the seating chart near the entrance, my name wasn't there. Not in the front row, not anywhere near it. I checked again, running my finger down the printed list. My name had been removed. I felt my stomach drop. I walked into the ceremony space, looking for my seat, and that's when my mother appeared. She moved toward me quickly, her face tight. "Danielle, those seats are for people who truly supported Chloe." I blinked. "What are you talking about?" She lowered her voice but kept her grip firm on my elbow. "You barely contributed to this wedding." I stared at her. "I paid for the floral deposit when Chloe maxed out her credit card. That was $800. Mom waved her hand dismissively. "That was nothing." Guests were starting to notice. I could feel their eyes on us. Chloe stood near the altar, pretending to adjust her bouquet, but I saw her glance over. She looked away quickly. My mother guided me, firmly, to the third row. She seated me beside distant relatives I hadn't seen in years, people who didn't even know my middle name. I sat down, my hands folded in my lap, my face burning. The ceremony started. The music played. Chloe walked down the aisle in her white gown, smiling at everyone except me. I watched from the third row, surrounded by strangers, feeling like I didn't exist. When the ceremony ended, we moved to the reception. The room smelled like vanilla and champagne. Round tables were decorated with candles and eucalyptus. I found my name at a table near the back, wedged between an elderly cousin who didn't speak much and a friend of Chloe's I'd never met. I sat down and tried to smile. During the reception speeches, Mom stood up with a glass of champagne, her face glowing. She thanked everyone, the caterer, the florist, the photographer. She thanked everyone who stood by this family during such a beautiful time. She looked around the room, making eye contact with guests, smiling warmly. She looked right past me. She didn't say my name, not once. I felt something tighten in my chest. Later, I heard her voice rising from a nearby table. She was talking loudly, loud enough that I knew she wanted people to hear. Danielle's always been distant. She keeps to herself. She doesn't really engage with the family. I felt my face flush. I stood up slowly and walked over to her table. My voice was quiet but clear. I was with Grandma every week. Mom turned to me, her eyes cold. She smiled, but it wasn't kind. That doesn't make you special. The table went silent. People looked down at their plates. I felt my hands trembling. I opened my mouth to respond, but then I saw him. Mr. Caldwell, the family attorney, walking through the reception hall with purpose. He stopped beside my mother, his expression calm but serious. "Mrs. Harper, we need to discuss your mother's will. It can't wait." The room seemed to freeze. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Forks paused in the air. Mom's face went pale. "This isn't the time," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "It's a legal matter," Mr. Caldwell said evenly. "It needs to be addressed now." Guests nearby turned to watch. Whispers started spreading from table to table. Chloe stepped forward, her face red, her eyes wide. "Did you plan this, Danielle?" I stayed where I was. My voice was soft. "I didn't need to." Silence spread through the room like spilled water. Mom's hand trembled as she set down her glass. Chloe looked between us, confused and panicked. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just waited. The room felt thick with tension, with unspoken questions, with the weight of something about to break open. I could see Mom's mind racing, trying to figure out what was happening, trying to regain control. But she couldn't, because for once, I wasn't the one on the outside looking in. I was exactly where I needed to be. Mom insisted it was inappropriate timing, her voice rising with each word. "This is my daughter's wedding. We can discuss this another time." But Mr. Caldwell didn't budge. He stood there, calm and professional, and repeated firmly, "There is legal urgency, Mrs. Harper. This cannot wait." Chloe's face turned bright red. She pointed at me, her hand shaking, her voice breaking. "She's trying to ruin my wedding. This is exactly what she does. She makes everything about her." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The guests were watching now, some with curiosity, others with visible discomfort. Mom's voice grew louder, more desperate. She was losing control of the narrative she'd spent years building. "This is manipulation. Danielle manipulated my mother. She isolated her from the rest of us." An aunt sitting at a nearby table, Aunt Carla, muttered under her breath, but loud enough for several people to hear. Danielle was the only one there. The comment hung in the air. A few people nodded slowly. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Uncle Ray, who'd been quiet all evening, spoke up from across the room. "I saw Danielle at the hospital more times than I can count." Mom's jaw clenched. She turned on him sharply. "That doesn't mean anything. She had her own reasons." "What reasons?" I asked quietly. Mom turned to me, her eyes blazing. "You wanted her money, you wanted control." I shook my head slowly. "I wanted her to be comfortable, that's all." Chloe's new husband, Derek, looked completely lost. He whispered something to Chloe, but she waved him off, tears streaming down her face. She was sobbing now, her makeup running, her bouquet forgotten on the table. "Why are you doing this to me?" she cried. "This is my day." Mr. Caldwell spoke again, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Mrs. Harper, we can discuss this privately, or we can continue here in front of your guests." Mom stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I will not be accused of anything. My mother loved me. She would have wanted me to have everything." "Then you have nothing to worry about," Mr. Caldwell said calmly. Mom's eyes darted around the room, looking for support, for someone to back her up. But people were silent, watching, waiting. I felt the weight of their stares. The tension was unbearable. The air felt heavy, thick with unspoken accusations and brewing conflict. I could see Mom calculating, trying to figure out her next move. Finally, she turned to me, her voice cold and sharp. "You did this. You orchestrated this whole thing to embarrass me." I shook my head. "I didn't do anything but show up for 3 years every single week." Mom's face twisted. "You're ungrateful. After everything I've done for you." "Like what?" I asked. "Like seating me in the 3rd row?" The question landed hard. A few people gasped quietly. Mom opened her mouth, but no words came out. Chloe grabbed her arm. "Mom, let's just go talk to him privately. Please, everyone's staring." Mom pulled her arm away. "No, I'm not going to be humiliated like this." But she already was. And she knew it. I stood up quietly, grabbed my purse from my chair, and walked toward the exit. The room was silent except for the sound of my heels on the hardwood floor. I didn't look back. I didn't say goodbye. I left the reception early, not to make a scene, but to avoid making things worse. The night air outside was cool and crisp, a relief after the suffocating tension inside. I sat in my car for a long time, my hands on the steering wheel, my mind racing. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. Later that night, my phone started buzzing. A group text from Mom. "Danielle has betrayed this family. She manipulated Grandma and planned this humiliation. I hope she's proud." The messages kept coming. Angry texts from cousins I barely spoke to. Voicemails from relatives demanding explanations, asking how I could do this, telling me I should be ashamed. I didn't respond to any of them. Over the next few days, I started piecing together what had really been going on. I discovered, through a conversation with Aunt Carla, that Mom had assumed she was the primary heir to Grandma's estate. She'd been counting on it. She'd already made financial commitments based on that expectation. She'd put a deposit down on a condo in a gated community across town. She'd bought a new car, a luxury sedan she'd been showing off to her friends. She'd told people at her book club she was coming into money, that she'd be taking a European vacation soon. She'd built her future on an assumption she'd never confirmed. Chloe, too, had been making plans. She'd mentioned to Derek's family that they'd be buying a house soon, that Grandma's inheritance would help with the down payment. They'd already started looking at properties online. Chloe and Mom grew increasingly arrogant over those few days. I heard through the grapevine that they were confident, dismissive of any concerns. "There's nothing she can prove," Chloe had said to someone at her gym. "Mom was Grandma's daughter. It's obvious who the will favors." Mom echoed the sentiment in her texts to relatives. "Danielle is grasping at straws. She has no proof of anything. When the will is read, everyone will see the truth." I said very little during those days. I went to work. I taught my classes. I graded papers. At home, I went to my closet and pulled out 3 thick folders. I spread them across my kitchen table and reviewed everything one more time. Every document, every receipt, every recorded conversation. Everything I needed was already there. What they didn't know was that Grandma didn't trust easily. She'd been burned before. By friends who borrowed money and never paid her back. By extended family who only called when they needed something, even by her own daughter. So when I started helping her 3 years ago, she was cautious. She watched me. She tested me. She waited to see if I'd disappear like the others, but I didn't. I showed up every week, sometimes twice a week. I drove her to appointments. I picked up her prescriptions. I sat with her in waiting rooms and held her hand during difficult conversations with doctors. And over time, she saw something in me: consistency, loyalty, love without expectation. I kept detailed medical logs. Every appointment was documented. Every diagnosis, every medication change, every treatment plan. I saved financial receipts. Copays, prescriptions, transportation costs, medical equipment. Everything was filed and organized. I recorded phone calls with her full consent. It was legal in our state as long as one party knew and agreed. Grandma knew. She wanted it documented. "I want proof," she'd said to me once, her voice shaky but determined. I want proof of who really cared. I had emails from Mom, messages where she complained about hospital expenses, about how long Grandma's treatment was taking, about the inconvenience of it all. "Why is this taking so long?" she'd written in one email. "Can't they just let her go?" "This is dragging on forever." I had text messages from Chloe, sent late at night when she thought no one would judge her. "Do you think Grandma will update her will soon?" "I really need help with my credit cards. I'm drowning here." Another message, sent just 2 months before Grandma passed. "Has she said anything about leaving me the house?" Derek and I could really use it. I had Grandma's handwritten notes, written in her shaky cursive on lined notebook paper. Notes expressing disappointment. Notes about feeling abandoned. Notes about who really cared and who just showed up when it was convenient. "Chloe called today," one note read. "First time in 6 weeks. She asked about my health and then asked if I'd thought about updating my will. She didn't stay long." Another note, dated 3 months before she died. "Danielle took me to my cardiology appointment today. She took notes and asked the doctor questions I didn't even think to ask. I don't know what I'd do without her. Grandma made changes no one expected. She didn't tell anyone but me and Mr. Caldwell. She called me one evening, about 8 months before she passed. Her voice was clear, more determined than I'd heard it in a while. "I've made some decisions, Danielle, decisions about my estate. Mr. Caldwell has the details. I want you to know that I've thought about this carefully. I've thought about who showed up and who didn't. I didn't ask for details. I told her I loved her and that whatever she decided was her choice." The lawyer had contacted me weeks earlier, just a few days after Grandma passed, to confirm the documentation. He wanted to make sure everything was in order, that the evidence was solid. I told him it was. I stayed silent after that. I didn't tell anyone about the call. I didn't hint at what was coming. I waited, because I knew the truth would reveal itself when the time was right. I had a file they'd never seen coming. A file that would dismantle every assumption they'd built their plans on. Mr. Caldwell, the longtime Harper family attorney, was not someone you could intimidate. He'd known our family for 30 years. He'd handled my grandfather's estate back in the 90s. He'd seen family drama before. He'd seen people fight over money, over property, over things that didn't matter in the long run. And he respected me. Not because I asked for it, but because I'd earned it. He told me once over coffee at a diner near his office, "Your grandmother wanted fairness. She wanted to make sure the people who actually cared were recognized." He warned me that my mother expected full control of the estate property. She'd already talked to a real estate agent about listing Grandma's house. She'd already planned renovations, talked about staging, discussed market value. "She's very confident, Mr. Caldwell said carefully. "She believes the will is straightforward." I asked him if I should just stay quiet, let it go, avoid the drama, sign whatever they wanted and walk away. He leaned forward, his eyes serious, his voice firm. "Don't sign anything. Let the truth stand. Your grandmother made her wishes clear for a reason." But staying quiet wasn't easy. Not when the attacks started. Mom began spreading rumors in town. She told her book club I'd manipulated Grandma, that I'd isolated her from the family, that I'd poisoned her mind against everyone else. She told her coworkers at the dental office, where she worked part-time, that I was cold, calculating, and selfish. She told anyone who would listen that I'd taken advantage of an elderly woman. I heard about it from other teachers at school. from people at the grocery store, from a former high school classmate who messaged me on Facebook asking if the rumors were true. Chloe pressured me constantly. She called me almost every day. Just sign something, just let this go. You're tearing the family apart. Do you really want to be known as the person who destroyed us? I didn't answer most of her calls. When I did, I kept my responses short. I'm not signing anything. Why not? She'd demand. Because Grandma made her decision, I'm going to respect it. This isn't about Grandma, this is about you being selfish. I hung up. Mr. Caldwell called me a few days before the scheduled will reading. They're getting aggressive. Your mother's attorney contacted me trying to negotiate before the reading. She's assuming she has leverage. Does she? I asked. No, he said simply, but she doesn't know that yet. The family grew more confident as the week went on. I saw photos on social media of Mom and Chloe at Grandma's house, taking measurements, discussing paint colors. Chloe posted a story on Instagram with the caption, "New beginnings coming soon." Mom talked openly at church about her plans for the property. I'm thinking of turning it into a rental, she told people. The neighborhood's gentrifying, it could be a great investment. They thought they'd won. They thought the will reading was just a formality, a legal box to check before they could move forward with their plans. Tension built as the official legal meeting approached. It was scheduled for 1 week after the wedding, on a Tuesday afternoon. I marked the date on my calendar. I organized my files one more time. I didn't tell anyone I was ready. I just waited. The meeting was held in a small conference room at Mr. Caldwell's office downtown. The walls were beige, plain, with framed certificates and a single landscape painting. The table was long and wooden, polished but worn from years of use. There were 5 chairs arranged around it. Mom sat at the head of the table, her posture straight, her expression confident. She was already discussing selling the property before Mr. Caldwell had even started. I think we should list it quickly, she said to Chloe, her voice bright. The market's good right now. We could get well above asking if we stage it properly. Chloe nodded along, scrolling through her phone, probably looking at furniture or decor ideas. I saw this company that does estate sales. They could clear out Grandma's stuff in like 2 days. I sat across from them, my hands folded on the table. I didn't speak. 2 witnesses sat near the door, quiet and professional, required by law to be present. Mr. Caldwell stood at the front of the room, a thick folder in his hands. He cleared his throat, and the room fell silent. He began reading in a steady, professional voice. He started with the standard legal language, the formal acknowledgments and declarations. Then he got to the specific bequests. He acknowledged Grandma's gratitude for my care and loyalty. He read her words exactly as she'd written them. I want to acknowledge my granddaughter Danielle Harper for her unwavering care, compassion, and loyalty during the final years of my life. She was present when others were not. She sacrificed her time and energy without complaint. She loved me without expecting anything in return. Mom shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Chloe looked up from her phone. Mr. Caldwell continued. The estate was divided unexpectedly. Grandma left the majority of liquid assets to me. The savings accounts, the investment portfolios, the bonds, everything that wasn't tied to property. Chloe received a smaller trust, contingent on employment stability. It would pay out over 5 years, but only if she maintained steady employment. If she quit or was fired, the payments stopped. Mom received nothing except a letter. Mr. Caldwell paused, then said, "Your mother left a letter to be read aloud. She requested it be shared in this setting." Mom's face went pale. "That's not necessary. It's part of the will," Mr. Caldwell said gently. "I'm required to read it." He unfolded the letter and began. Grandma's words were clear, direct, and devastating. She described the neglect, the missed visits, the phone calls that never came, the birthdays forgotten, the holidays spent alone while everyone else was too busy. She praised my compassion, my patience, my willingness to show up even when it was hard. "Danielle was there," Grandma had written. When I was scared, when I was in pain, when I needed someone to hold my hand, Danielle was there. I cannot repay that kind of love with money, but I can acknowledge it. I can make sure she knows how much it meant. Mom's hands gripped the edge of the table. Chloe's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Caldwell finished reading the letter and set it down. Mom immediately spoke, her voice shaking with anger. "This is fake. She manipulated her. My mother would never write something like that." I didn't speak. I just opened my folder. I slid the documents across the table slowly, methodically. Emails printed and highlighted. Text messages with timestamps. Medical logs with dates and details. Mr. Caldwell connected his laptop to a small projector on the side table. He projected an email onto the wall. It was from Mom, sent 2 years ago. "Mom, I can't keep coming to these appointments. They take too long and I have my own life. Can't Danielle just handle it?" Another email appeared. "Do we really need to keep paying for all this treatment? How much longer is this going to go on?" Then the text messages from Chloe. "Has Grandma said anything about the will? I really need to know. Can you ask her if she's leaving me anything? I'm in a bad spot financially." Mr. Caldwell played an audio clip. Grandma's voice, clear and firm, recorded just 4 months before she died. "I want Danielle to have what she's earned. She's the only one who showed up. She's the only one who cared. I don't want my daughter or Chloe to get anything they haven't worked for. They didn't work for this." Danielle did. The room went completely silent. Chloe started crying, her hands covering her face, her shoulders shaking. Mom sat frozen, her face pale, her lips pressed into a thin line. Mr. Caldwell turned off the projector and faced them. "The will is airtight. It was prepared carefully, reviewed multiple times, and executed with full mental competency. There is no legal basis to contest it." Mom's voice came out as a whisper. "She turned my mother against me." "No," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." Mom looked at me, her eyes full of something I couldn't quite name. Rage, regret, disbelief. "You planned this, you manipulated her." I shook my head. "I showed up. That's all I did. I showed up when no one else would." Chloe looked at me through her tears. "How could you do this?" "I didn't do anything," I said. "Grandma did. She made her own choice." Mr. Caldwell spoke again, his voice final. "This concludes the reading. If you have questions about the specifics of your individual bequests, I'm available to discuss them privately." Mom stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly. She grabbed her purse and walked toward the door without another word. Chloe followed, still crying. At the door, Mom turned back to look at me. Her voice was cold. "I'll never forgive you for this." I met her eyes. My voice was calm, steady, without malice. "You told me I didn't belong up front. Turns out I was exactly where I was supposed to be." They left. The door closed behind them. I sat there for a moment, letting the silence settle. Mr. Caldwell placed a hand on my shoulder briefly. "You did the right thing." I nodded. I wasn't sure if I felt victorious or just tired. Maybe both. I sold Grandma's house 6 months later. I didn't rush it. I took my time finding the right buyer, someone who would respect the home and the memories it held. I sold it respectfully, making sure everything was handled with care. I donated a portion of the proceeds to a literacy foundation in Grandma's name. She'd always loved books, always encouraged me to read, always believed that education was the key to everything. It felt right. I moved to a better home, a small house with a yard and a porch in a quieter part of town. It wasn't extravagant, but it was mine. I kept my teaching job. I didn't need to quit. I liked my work. I liked my students. I liked the routine and the purpose it gave me. Mom attempted contact months later, not with an apology, just excuses. She sent a text saying, "We should talk." I think there's been a misunderstanding. I didn't respond. She called twice. I didn't answer. I chose limited contact. I didn't cut her off completely, but I established boundaries. I decided what I was willing to engage with and what I wasn't. Chloe slowly distanced herself from Mom. I heard through Aunt Carla that they'd had a falling out, that Chloe blamed Mom for the way things had gone. She called me once, late at night, her voice small and uncertain. "I'm sorry," she said. I told her I appreciated it. I didn't know if we'd ever be close again, but I didn't hold on to anger. Anger would have only hurt me. I reflected a lot during those quiet months. I thought about family, about loyalty, about what it means to belong. Belonging isn't about where you're seated. It's not about front row chairs or printed names on seating charts. It's not about who gets the spotlight or the loudest applause. It's about who shows up when it matters. It's about who holds your hand in the hospital, who sits with you in the waiting room, who remembers your appointments and your medications and your fears. They thought front row seats defined family. Grandma knew better. Have you ever been publicly embarrassed by your own family? Told you didn't belong where you clearly did? Share your story in the comments. I want to hear it. Subscribe if you've ever stood quietly while others underestimated you. Click hype to help this story reach others who need it. Your story has power. If you felt a connection to mine, please subscribe and share your journey in the comments. Every hype you give this video helps empower someone else. Thank you for being here and for listening.